Good day, distinguished scholars and colleagues. Let me begin with a simple reflection. For thousands of years, long before the term sustainability appeared in academic literature, indigenous communities around the world were already practicing it. They protected forests without environmental policies, managed watersheds without modern technologies, and sustained biodiversity without formal scientific frameworks. Yet today, as we confront global environmental crisis, the knowledge systems that have long protected nature are often overlooked in mainstream resource management models. This raises an important question. What can contemporary natural resource management learn from indigenous ecological wisdom? It is this question that inspired our study titled Sacred Ecology: Development of Indigenous Natural Resource Management Model Through a Grounded Theory Lens. This study is a collaborative work between Dr. Ronald Ocampo and myself, Dr. Rema Bascos-Ocampo. Indigenous peoples play a crucial role in biodiversity conservation worldwide. Across different regions of the world, indigenous communities have long practiced environmental stewardship rooted in cultural traditions and ecological wisdom. For example, the Maasai people of East Africa employ rotational grazing systems that prevent overgrazing while allowing grasslands to regenerate. Similarly, the Yurok tribe in California successfully advocated for the removal of hydroelectric dams along the Klamath River, leading to one of the largest river restoration projects in the United States. In the Philippines, the Ifugao people have maintained the Banawe rice terraces for over 2,000 years, demonstrating a remarkable example of sustainable agroecological engineering. Meanwhile, the Agta communities in the Sierra Madre continue to protect forest ecosystems through traditional hunting and gathering practices that maintain ecological balance. These examples illustrate how indigenous knowledge systems are deeply connected with environmental sustainability. In the province of Apayao in northern Luzon, the Isnag people have long contributed to the preservation of the region's ecological integrity. Their traditional practices have helped maintain the Apayo lowland forest, which is recognized as one of northern Luzon's key biodiversity areas. In recognition of its ecological importance and the harmonious relationship between the indigenous community and their environment, Apayao was designated in 2024 as the Philippines' fourth UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, joining Palawan, Puerto Galera, and Albay. This designation highlights the critical role of indigenous stewardship in conservation efforts and reinforces the need to integrate traditional ecological knowledge with modern sustainability initiatives. This study seeks to answer several key research questions. First, what core ideas can be derived from existing literature and studies on natural resource management? Second, what sub-themes and major themes can be identified from these core ideas? Third, what conceptual framework can be developed based on these themes? And finally, what visual model can be crafted to illustrate the interconnectedness of these themes in natural resource management? By answering these questions, the study aims to develop a model that reflects the holistic perspective of indigenous resource management systems. This research adopts grounded theory as its theoretical framework. Grounded theory, introduced by Glaser and Strauss in 1967, emphasizes the generation of theory from systematically analyzed qualitative data. Instead of testing existing theories, grounded theory allows researchers to develop new theoretical insights directly from the data itself. In this study, grounded theory is used to synthesize insights from literature on indigenous knowledge systems and sustainability. Through this approach, we aim to construct a model that reflects the interconnectedness relationships among social, cultural, ecological, and institutional dimensions of natural resource management. This study utilized a qualitative research design grounded in constructivist grounded theory, particularly following the approach advocated by Charmas in 2006. The goal of the research was to develop a theory of indigenous natural resource management, or INRM, through the systematic analysis of scholarly literature. Rather than conducting fieldwork, the research focused on analyzing existing studies and documented experiences of indigenous communities engaged in natural resource management practices. The study employed documentary analysis as its primary data source. A purposive sampling strategy was used to select relevant materials. This included peer-reviewed journal articles, academic books, government reports, NGO publications, and other scholarly works documenting indigenous and community-based natural resource management practices. The sources were selected based on their relevance, credibility, diversity of cultural context, and richness of conceptual insights. The aim was to capture a wide range of indigenous perspectives across various ecological and geographic settings. The data corpus consisted of textual excerpts and key passages extracted from selected documents. These passages discuss concepts, practices, cultural values, and challenges related to natural resource management. The data were organized into a qualitative data analysis matrix to facilitate systematic review. A literature review protocol was also implemented to ensure transparency and consistency in the selection and analysis of sources. This protocol included inclusion and exclusion criteria, documentation of search databases and keywords, and a log of reviewed materials. Data analysis followed the constant comparative method, which is central to grounded theory. Three stages of coding were employed. First is open coding, which involves identifying key concepts and ideas from the literature. Second is eggshell coding, where related codes are grouped into subthemes and major themes. Third is selective coding, where these themes are refined and integrated into a coherent theoretical framework. Throughout the analysis, memo writing was used to capture emerging interpretations and insights. This iterative process allowed the conceptual framework to gradually develop while remaining grounded in the data. The final outcome of the analysis was the development of a conceptual model called the Indigenous Natural Resource Management Model. This model integrates several core ideas identified in the literature. These include interconnectedness with nature, customary governance systems, sustainable resource practices, spiritual and cultural values, community stewardship, and resilience. The model reflects how indigenous communities manage natural resources through systems that integrate cultural traditions, ecological knowledge, and social responsibility. Since the study relied exclusively on publicly available documents, no human subjects were involved. Therefore, formal ethics clearance was not required. However, the research maintained respectful representation of indigenous knowledge systems and emphasized the importance of recognizing indigenous contributions to environmental sustainability. The findings of this study are intended to be disseminated through academic publications, conferences, and digital platforms to support further research and policy development. The analysis of literature revealed several core ideas in natural resource management. These ideas emphasize that effective resource management is not purely technical, but is deeply influenced by cultural values, social structures, ecological knowledge, and institutional arrangements. Indigenous communities approach environmental management through holistic systems that integrate spiritual beliefs, community norms, and traditional ecological knowledge. These insights provided the foundation for developing the conceptual framework presented in the next slides. The first major theme in the framework is the cultural ecological foundation. This component highlights the deep connection between culture, spirituality, and the natural environment. Indigenous communities often view nature as sacred and emphasize the moral responsibility of humans to protect and respect the land. Traditional ecological knowledge passed through generations plays a critical role in guiding sustainable practices. The second theme is social governance structures. Indigenous communities often maintain customary governance systems that regulate the use and protection of natural resources. These governance structures involve community participation, shared decision making, and traditional leadership roles. Such systems help maintain accountability and ensure that resource management practices align with community values and ecological sustainability. The third theme focuses on adaptive livelihoods and sustainability. Indigenous communities often develop livelihood practices that are closely aligned with the natural environment. These practices emphasize resource generation, ecological balance, and resilience in the face of environmental change. Adaptive livelihood strategies also allow communities to maintain both economic survival and ecological sustainability. The integration of these themes leads to the Indigenous Natural Resource Management Framework. This framework illustrates how cultural values, governance systems, and livelihood practices interact in a dynamic and interconnected system. Together, these elements support environmental stewardship, ecological resilience, and sustainable development. The study concludes that natural resource management in indigenous contexts is fundamentally holistic and relational. Indigenous practices are deeply rooted in traditions, spiritual beliefs, and traditional ecological knowledge. The transmission of this knowledge through elders, cultural rituals, and community practices ensures continuity across generations. Furthermore, the sacred relationship between land, culture, and identity highlights the importance of recognizing indigenous rights, and knowledge systems in environmental policies. The conceptual framework developed in this study underscores the importance of integrating cultural ecological foundations, governance structures, and adaptive livelihoods to achieve sustainable resource management. To strengthen indigenous based natural resource management, collaboration among stakeholders is essential. Government institutions should recognize and integrate traditional ecological knowledge into policy development and environmental management programs. There is also a need to protect indigenous land rights and promote culturally sensitive legislation that respects indigenous worldviews. Finally, interagency and community collaboration will be critical in ensuring that natural resource management initiatives are inclusive, sustainable, and culturally grounded. In closing, this study reminds us that sustainability is not only a scientific or technical pursuit, it is also deeply cultural and relational. Indigenous communities have long demonstrated that caring for the environment means honoring the sacred relationship between people, land, and future generations. Perhaps the challenge before us today is not only to innovate new solutions, but also to listen to the wisdom that has sustained nature for centuries. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention once again. I am Dr. Rema Bascos-Ocampo, presenting our collaborative work with Dr. Ronald O. Ocampo. We hope that this study contributes to the growing recognition of indigenous knowledge systems as vital foundations for sustainable environmental management. Thank you very much.